and welcome back to the AKAI X100D reel to reel. It's on my bench again, and I've simply soldered all the wires directly to the PCBs. This will make maintenance a little bit harder, and I also have to fancy some isolation around this when I put the framework back on there. But yeah, for now, for testing, I've put some paper between there to prevent things from short-circuiting. I've powered it up just shortly, plugged in a microphone, and the VU meters responded properly on both channels this time. And no weird shaking from the VU meters either. The original connectors, well, they pretty much became dust. Here's another part. There's like there's just crap everywhere. Here's some. They just turned to dust. I think due to age, that the plastic just started to become brittle. Something I also need to fix is this little counter here. As you can see, the little gears that control the wheels have a loose side. The left side there, that's loose. So I'll need to somehow glue that back together or something. It would be nice if that worked too, but it's not very essential. My main goal now is to that I at least can record and play back with this thing. So anyways, enough talking. I'm gonna put some reels on this bad boy, and hopefully I'll get some results. If not, well, the measuring continues. One thing I'll note here is that I already checked these two PCBs, checked the components, the voltages. It does help that I have the original documents, the manual, service manuals and schematics and everything. So, and all the voltages are on there, so that was easy to check. It seems that the transistors and capacitors are proper, at least on these two PCBs. The main PCB here, I am not sure. I haven't measured that one yet, but yeah. A funny thing, and I don't know if I mentioned this in my previous video, is that there are holes for speakers in this thing. You can see the 4 mounting screws, and these screw holes don't attach to anything in this construction. So it's obviously that for a different model, maybe a more expensive version of this model, they would have had speakers. So also on both sides, the other sides there too. So that's an interesting little bit. And actually another thing you can see is, and I don't know if you can see this, this is upside down actually. As you can see, there's this red plug here for the mains power, and there's also a second hole for a second plug. So that's probably also for that that other model with the speakers. I'm gonna guess that will be the power supply for the amplifier for the speakers. For those who want to know where the main bias pot is, it's over here. This is a little variable resistor which takes care of the bias. It's 100 ohms, and it's currently set to about 10 ohms, I believe. So yeah, it's right next to the counter. So we have the first bits of live. Okay, so when I record something and play it back, the actual signal is very minimal. So the recording part is still a bit of an issue. So I guess it's time to try and configure some shit. Look at the schematics again. See where the fault might be. Probably a capacitor. and hopefully I can replace that part and it should be working fine. So I got some life out of this thing. So what I did was I got a little creative and I replaced the some of the germanium transistors, these two here. The right channel's issue was this germanium transistor. I think it was this one actually. This little germanium here. That one was just faulty, and that's why there was a storm in this channel. The other channel, the germaniums were fine, but yeah, because I replaced this germanium with a silicon transistor of a type that was closest to the specifications of the original germanium, you know, the two channels sounded very different. So, and I liked the sound of the silicon much more. Of course, it's a it's like what, 20 years difference between the old germanium and the new silicon transistor here. So of course this new transistor had a lot less noise, so the signal to noise ratio was improved a lot on this channel, like a lot. So yeah, I simply did the same modification to this channel as well. The other germaniums are still there. Actually, I should add some light here. It's a bit hard to see, but so yeah, the both channels work very nicely now with playback, as you can hear. Although I do think that the playback speed is a bit too low, because it sounds a bit, you know, a very deep voice. But well, the VU meters don't do a whole lot though. So, but it's probably because I need to adjust some of the circuitry to fit the transistors a little bit better. Recording is still an issue. I tested it both with microphones and 2 line-ins, and I do get some recording on the left channel, but not on the right channel. At least I do get a recording on the right channel, but it's very, very low volume. And we're not on the left channel, it's a very low volume too. But I'm just gonna stop the tape. So the left channel is a low volume too, but it's a little higher volume, but it sounds rather distorted. So there's still an issue with this PCB here. This PCB here is the main control PCB. It has like a big switch on the other side, which switches all the connections and for playback and recording, etc. And the 2 transistors on this PCB, which are located here and here, of course on the other side, those amplify the input, so the line in and the microphone in. According to the service manual, if you have a very low recording volume, but the VU meters do indicate properly, which they do, and then the issue is with these 2 transistors. Now I've already replaced one, and yeah, it's a bit hard to see because it's black. It's the same type of resistor that I also put here, because they're all PNP transistors. But I've no dice on the right channel yet, so it might be a configuration issue or something, or an issue with a capacitor. I thought that one of the capacitors looked a bit dodgy, so yeah. Shone a little light on the replacement transistor. Now you might think that this transistor looks a bit weird, and that's because I put a little metal can around it, and a grounded said metal can, because these replacement silicon transistors are very sensitive for motor noise, and you get a bit of a, you know, 50 or 60 hertz hum through the signal. So to reduce this as much as possible, I found these little cans. Actually, I think those were from another reel-to-reel, little separators, and those fit exactly around these transistors. So, and as an added bonus, it kind of looks like a metal can germanium now. So, unfortunately, due to the nature of these replacement transistors, the collector base and the emitter are in different legs than the original germanium transistors. I had to put these transistors on the back instead of on the front. So, but well, I kind of decided to make this thing an modding project because, well, it's not original now anymore anyways. So, although it does sound quite a bit better now. So yeah, I'm just this is just going to be my experimentation reel-to-reel that functions properly. And another thing I should mention is that I realigned the playback and recording head, and this has increased the sound quality tremendously. It was very muffled at first, and first I thought it was maybe the replacement transistors, but then I realized that I hadn't actually gotten a chance to check the head alignment. So that's proper now, and I'm gonna do another test recording, see if the recording level is a bit better too, and well, I'll just work from there. For those who want to know, the little adjustment screw for adjusting the head azimuth, which was the issue here, is right here, this screw here. Another thing to check when debugging the recording is, and let me just try this, set it to record mode with one hand, is the bias head, to see if the bias head position is proper. Because it moves forward when the unit is placed in recording position, so that its field, overlaps the field of the record and playback head. Hence, the bias signal will be mixed in. It could be that it doesn't move forward properly, and thus you don't have a bias signal, which can cause a lot of, bad noisy recordings. Oh, I'm currently in the process even of putting this thing back together. Yeah, hopefully the right channel will work now, and well, if it doesn't, I'm kind of planning to use this thing for this thing's preamps in my little home studio, even if the right channel recording doesn't work. The left channel recording is fine now, so I can at least record stuff in mono if I want to and do tape tricks with that. So yeah, frankly that's good enough for me. Yeah, at the moment kind of more interested in just using the microphone and line-ins and running stuff through the preamps, especially now they're so clean. And yeah, I read on some forums that running your bass guitar through an AKAI unit actually can give some very interesting saturation and a little bit of sort of overdrive, especially if you drive the preamp a bit more, which figures because those are germanium transistors, even though one half is silicon now, so sound isn't very original anymore. But I really want to experiment with this thing, use it as a preamp maybe for certain stuff. Discovered I'm an idiot, because I was wondering why the playback wasn't exactly right. The mechanics and the motor and everything was in proper working condition, but when I played back previously recorded stuff, and I have a whole lot of tapes with recorded stuff, the playback was just a tad bit too slow. And there's a switch on the back to switch between 50 and 60 Hertz power supply. However, there's also a switch on the front, and that one is on 60 Hertz and it should be on 50 Hertz. So I was derping around with the switch on the back, completely ignoring this one. So I installed it in my slightly messy setup. There it is. I had to open up the bottom bit because well, I had to improvise a little with how the PCBs were placed in there, because I had soldered the connections instead of, you know, replacing the connectors. So I used just normal regular paper to create a bit of separation between each layer and to prevent any shorts from happening. But despite my precautions, there was still a bit of a short in there. So, but the right channel with recording is still a bit of an issue. Left channel is fine. Playback on both channels is perfectly fine. I had a little test connection, and yeah, it works pretty well.